What is up, beautiful people? It's your girl Cam, and I am back with another video. Today I'm coming at you with my very first book review here on my channel. I am so excited. I am so excited. Hey. I love books and I love to read, and I want to share more about my reading enthusiasm here with you on my channel. And I'm excited because I've been reading lots of books lately. I think I've knocked out maybe 4 books in the last couple weeks, and I feel really good about that I'm catching up on my reading goal for this year. So I wanted to go ahead and get started and give you a book review of The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. So if you want to hear my review of The Water Dancer, just stick around. Okay, so let's get into this book. First of all, I have to start by saying that historical fiction is my favorite genre of book to read. I absolutely love books about black folks in the antebellum period. Now, wait a minute. I know that may sound strange. I know that may sound crazy because I am very well aware of what we were going through during the antebellum period, what a lot of us were going through in the antebellum period. Not all black people were slaves during that time, but a great many of us were. But there is something so fascinating to me about reading about real people or even fictitious people and how they were able to overcome great struggle and great tragedy and great evil and still persevere and still find ways to love and still find ways to have joy and be creative and find ways to break free and find ways to get out of bondage and help other people get, you know what I'm saying? It's just exciting. It's exciting to read all of these different people's lives and how they were able to overcome such horrific obstacles. So historic fiction is my absolute favorite. When I look back at one of my reading lists from maybe 2017, I would say about 90% of it was historic fiction based on the antebellum period. So that's just what I like, y'all. It's what I like. And I know it's not for everybody. Everybody can't tolerate it. It makes some people super angry and they can't, they can't get their minds right. They can't focus after they get so angry. But it doesn't make me angry. It really makes me feel a great deal of pride and a great deal of determination when I read how my ancestors or people like my ancestors were able to overcome such great obstacles. So, having said that, The Water Dancer is historic fiction. It is set in the antebellum period, and it is about a young man named Hiram Walker who is called a part of the tasked, and I'm going to put that here on the screen so you'll understand what I'm saying in case it's not clear. He is a part of the tasked. Instead of calling people slaves and slave owners, he gives them different names in this book. So the enslaved Africans are called the tasked, and the owners of the plantation are called the quality. And then the whites in the community who are responsible for bringing the slaves over on the slave ships and who run the auction blocks, those people are called the low because they are not revered with very much respect in the community, even though they're helping the plantation owners or the quality to get their workforce. They're not considered with very much respect in the community. Okay, so let's just get those terms clear as I talk about the book. So Hiram Walker is the main character, and he is one of the tasked, and he is the son of one of the quality. The plot thickens. But I don't want to give away too much of this book because I would love for you to read it if it sounds interesting to you. And I did forget to mention that this book was published not too long ago in 2019. So this was published relatively recently in 2019. So let's talk about some of the themes that run through this book. So it is set in antebellum Virginia, and it does take place primarily on a plantation. And one of the themes that runs throughout this book is family. You get to look at lots of different versions of family throughout this entire book. There is the quality Mr. Walker, who is the plantation owner or the quality, and he has a family that he is trying very hard to keep together, and he wants his son to keep his legacy going, but there are some complications with that, and he really strives to make sure his legacy continues, but he has to come up with some creative ways to make that happen throughout this novel. So family is very important throughout this entire novel. Another version of the family theme running throughout this book is the family that is established in the tasked quarters, how the tasked people support each other and love on each other and take care of each other like a family. Even though their families oftentimes have been split apart or separated to different plantations, they adopt each other, they hold on tight to each other, they love on each other like family. And then there's another version of the theme of family running through on the freedom side of this story, because this is very much a story about the Underground Railroad and the escape from the tasked system into liberation. And so there's this very strong theme of family that runs even on the freedom side, where people are freed and they take care of each other and they look after each other and they hold on to each other tight and help each other to become acclimated to their new freedom conditions, because there are some ups and downs even with being free. And while we're talking about freedom and enslavement, I want to kind of discuss or put to rest this myth that most slaves were content in slavery and that they just waited to be liberated. I've heard this floating around the internet for a while, and it just frustrates me so much, because I can't imagine anyone thinking that another human being would be satisfied being enslaved by another person. So let's talk about the different ways that people were able to obtain their liberation. First of all, the enslaved here in America, they were not happy to be here. They were not happy to be enslaved or to be working for free for no pay, with with a lot of limitations on how they could move, when they could move, when they could eat, what they could eat, what they could wear, who they could marry, if they could have children, with whom they could have children. There were so many limitations on the lives of the enslaved Africans here in this country. It's hard to believe that anybody would be satisfied with that. So many of the enslaved did fight for their own liberation by various means. Many of them became part of revolts and rebellions, like the Nat Turner Rebellion, but there are many, many more that have never been turned into movies, and it seems like people don't know what's going on unless it's been turned into a movie. A lot of people don't like to read and do their own homework, so here I am to give you some information that so there were lots and lots of slave revolts that happened from the slave ships all the way over to the Americas, where the Africans fought back, but because they did not have the guns that the new settlers and the Americans had, many times they were defeated because they didn't have the same types of weaponry as the Americans had. Also, cases where slaves actually fought their masters back and were able to defeat the masters and free everybody and liberate everybody on the plantation. Now, many of them were caught because there was a system in America where not only were the plantation owners watching out for their own property, there was a whole system of overseers and slave catchers in this country. So if you were found roaming around without any documentation or papers, you could be caught by a slave catcher or by an overseer and taken to the plantation that you came from or taken to the auction block to be resold. So even if you were able to defeat your owner and get free and free everyone else on the plantation, where are you going? Because there's so many people out here looking for you, looking for escaped slaves and looking for random black people who don't have papers on them saying where they belong. So it's very dangerous to escape the plantations. But lots of people did it, and lots of people were re-enslaved, and lots of people gained their own liberation. There's also a system called the Underground Railroad, which most people are familiar with, but just in case, I do want to reiterate that it was not a train. It was a system of escape from the institution of slavery to liberation, either to places like Philadelphia or Canada, where folks could have their freedom, where slavery had been eventually outlawed. Underground Railroad was a system or a network of people working together to liberate the enslaved. This included Africans, this included Quakers, this included recent immigrants that were Americans who did not believe in the institution of slavery for lots of different reasons. Some people thought that it was morally wrong to hold slaves. Some people thought that it was financially a problem to hold slaves. Some people thought that it was going to muddy the bloodline to continue to hold slaves, because oftentimes the plantation owner was making babies with his property. Let's just put it plain. We're all adults here, right? Most of us are adults here. So lots of the slave owners or the plantation owners, or the quality as mentioned in this book, were making babies with their enslaved or tasked Africans. And so many people were against the institution of slavery simply for that reason alone. Not that they thought slavery was wrong, but that they didn't want the plantation owners to continue to have children with these African women. Okay, so let's just put that myth to rest that many Africans wanted to be enslaved and they waited to be liberated. That is not true. Many Africans fought back and they worked very hard to gain their own freedom. They did work with others oftentimes to get their freedom, but they were very much a part of their own liberation and their own freedom struggle and their own freedom journey. All right, so let's talk about one more theme in this book, and then I want to tell you a little bit about the science fiction part of it. So the last theme I want to discuss, in this book is water. Water plays a very big part in The Water Dancer, hence the name of the book. It takes people, like water does, from one place to another. It brings about memories of the past, because this is historical fiction and science fiction all mixed together. It transports people from one place to another. It purifies, it heals. So water is a huge theme in this book as well. So overall, I would give this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And I know, I liked it, I absolutely loved it, but there was one part of the book that I just did not enjoy, and that was the ending. It was not a good or a bad ending. I just wish the author had not ended it the way that he did. I think it left the door open for a sequel, which I would be totally down for. I would love to have a sequel to this book, but I just did not enjoy the ending. Everything else I enjoyed. But you know how sometimes you read a book and you get to the end and you're like, wow, we're going to end it like that? So that's how I felt about this book. But everything else about this book I absolutely loved. Ta-Nehisi Coates' writing just pulls you into the world of Hiram Walker. He pulls you into this antebellum world and this society. None of the characters seem fake or like caricatures of real people. They feel like real people moving, walking, breathing through Virginia during the time of the antebellum South. So I thought the language was rich. I had to pull my dictionary out a couple of times, which I totally appreciate. I love books that make me think or that push me a little bit in my vocabulary. I love that. So Ta-Nehisi Coates' writing is absolutely compelling. It's fresh. It is vibrant. It's colorful. He paints a beautiful picture for you of the plantation, of the waterways that they visit. And he also lets us get a good sneak peek at the Harriet Tubman in this book. So I highly recommend, if you have not read The Water Dancer, that you grab a copy of it and read it for yourself. So that's going to do it for me, you guys, for my very first book review right here on my channel. I had so much fun sharing this book with you, and I hope that you did too. So if you're not already a part of the Piece of the Plans fam, I hope you'll take a moment and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you won't miss out on any of the fun right here on this channel. If you're already a part of the fam, thank you for coming back. So let me know down in the comments section if you have read The Water Dancer or if it's on your to be read list for this summer. Thanks so much for joining me for my very first book review. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. I hope you have some good books on your to be read list for this summer, and I hope that your week is full of love, joy, and most of all, peace. I'll see you next time.